they seem to pick out certain people that he healed, and I think we all know that those are in there for a reason. And I started looking at a particular place that he healed, and it was these blind men. There's 3 different places where he heals the blind in the Bible, and one of them is in Mark 8, and in that particular passage, he takes this guy that is blind, and he actually takes him out of the village. He spits in the guy's eyes, and the guy kind of washes his eyes off, and he can't see very clearly, so Jesus really does it again and prays for him, and the guy's healed. Now, later on in Mark, he heals another blind man, and to us, typically, you would think, well, it worked that one way, why won't you just do the same thing? Why don't you spit in his eyes again? But, that's not what Jesus did. He, in fact, he did it another way. In that particular passage, he just looked at these guys and asked them, do you want to be healed? And they said, yeah, we want to see. So he healed them. The third one is in John, and if you guys are familiar in Encounters, John 9 talks about this man who was sitting inside the road. The disciples are arguing about this guy just a life of sin. Was it his parents? Was it him? What's caused him to be blind? And Jesus just said, no, this is just a way for me to show you who I am. And in this particular one, if you guys are familiar, he actually spits on the ground. He wipes the mud in his hands, and he wipes them on the guy's face, and he sees. So as I'm looking at these 3 different ways that God used these passages to show us something, what I'm beginning to understand, at least what we're experiencing in Roanoke and a lot of these other areas of my life, that it's not a formula, guys. This walk with God is not a formula. This walk with God is not about how we lean on our past experiences or the success that we've had in other areas or even our own strengths. This is about following God. And what we're really experiencing in Roanoke is, it is completely different up there. I mean, even to the level of, guys, we're in Lynchburg, Virginia. And everybody here knows Jesus Christ. Everybody's heard the name Jesus Christ. Everybody who's come out of Liberty or been at Thomas Road or all of the 1,000 churches have at least heard the word Jesus. Up there, we don't hear it much. And a lot of the stuff that goes along with that is causing us to really begin to question, okay, is this really going to work, what we've been doing here in Lynchburg? And the reason that I'm bringing this up tonight, guys, because I think we can really look at our own lives and begin to ask ourselves, is the areas in our lives that we're working hard at, is it something we're basing on some type of formula that somebody's given us, or we've watched work for other people? Or are we really taking time to see what God is trying to teach us in that? As I think about some of these areas talked about, like, you guys that are fathers, you have kids that, you're going to raise them, but they're going to be different. And you may try to do it one way with one, and you try to duplicate that in the other, and you find yourself it's not working. I think what we're really going to have to start looking at is what is God really wanting to say to us? What is He teaching us in those particular areas? Like our finances, you guys that are struggling to kind of make ends meet, what does it look like to take a step back and to say, God, what is it that you're really teaching me? What are the areas really in my life that I need to pull back from? Because I think, at least for what I'm experiencing, is that we get caught up in very much of kind of a formula for life. The world has given us kind of a pattern to follow. And as you guys begin to look at the areas in your life, really begin to ask yourself, are you following God, or are you following a pattern or formula that's been put out there for you that's just worked for other people, or maybe it's worked for you in the past? To kind of bring this kind of full circle, with the thing in Roanoke that I'm really seeing what God is doing to us and in us, is there's a group of 5 guys that have been pretty devoted to this Roanoke group. And what we decided to do, I guess, as a group, was to really take a step back and to ask God, what are you teaching us here? What is it that you want us to share with these guys? And what we've had to do is to really ask ourselves, what's God doing in us? What is He doing in us so He can do something through us? And we're doing that by coming together like we so often just meet there. We're meeting beforehand and we're praying. We're praying before we go into the group, and we're asking God, what is His will for our lives? What is it that He wants to show us in this group? And it's been pretty amazing. One night we were headed up to the group, and got a call from one of the guys and said that he wasn't going to show up. And asked him what was going on, and he said, well, one of the guys that we've been wanting to come, I'm going to go help him move. And it was pretty neat because it wasn't really anything that I did or anything. I just said, well, why don't we just go help? I guess really thinking about it, it wasn't like we had to go to the restaurant to go reach guys. We just had to go where the Spirit was moving that night. And it was really quite interesting because the night that we went out there, it was pouring down rain. And we went over to this lady's house to help this guy move, and he didn't know any of us. Like, he had never met us. And here's 7 guys showing up at his doorstep in the pouring rain, willing to help him move stuff. And as the night went on, we all kind of, were just really just enjoying what God had opened up for us, what had happened, how we got out of the restaurant and we were moving. But, what God had planned there is that guy got to see what that group looked like without having to come to the restaurant to see it. And He used each one of us to do that because, when he was sitting there in the other room and he was with his friend, he was like, who are all these guys? And the guy said, well, those are the guys from that group I keep telling you about. He said, you know what, that's pretty cool they'd come out here in the pouring down rain and help me out. And he decided to come out to the group, and he came the following week, and 2 weeks later he gave his life to Christ. So I share that story with you guys to say there's nothing we did that night other than just go where God wanted us to go. And I think if we would have just leaned on the idea that we had to stay in the confines of a restaurant to go do God's will, then we would be still following really a pattern that we had come up with here in Lynchburg. And tonight, guys, what I really want us to start looking at is, what are the areas in your life that maybe you've got a formula for? Maybe you've come up with a way to go about, parenting or relationship, or, handling your finances, or maybe just even this walk, and is that becoming more of work? And what would it look like to stop tonight and just surrender that over, and seek God first in it. As I think about what He's doing in me right now, I'm really starting to realize, at least with this group, is my natural tendency is to speak out. I mean, if you guys have ever been around me, you've probably experienced that once or twice. But what God is really showing me right now, that He doesn't need me to speak out. He needs me to listen. And that's what He's teaching me right now. And I'm really hoping tonight, guys, as we sit around the table and we start looking at these areas in our lives that we've come up with this whatever formula to do it, is to see if God's really in it. And really, what is God teaching you in it? Because He wants to take us all on a journey. And it's interesting, I use that passage about the 3 blind men, and I think about that. God used those. And I challenge you to go back and actually read each 3 of those passages, because each one actually gives a different perspective about God's plan for each one of those guys and what He was trying to teach us. But really, I think what He's showing us there is that He's got experiences to reach all of us. And there's different things that He's doing in us that are for specific purposes. And the only way that we're really going to be able to know that is if we take a step back and really seek Him out in it. So tonight, guys, is just about that. Take some time to go through these questions. Really, challenge each other to kind of really think about some of those areas in your life that maybe you've pushed God out of the way, and you're doing it on your own. And let's look at how we might bring God back into that, and what that looks like. So, questions for tonight: what areas right now in your life that you're working really hard in and nothing seems to be working? And then the follow-up to that is, what would it look like to surrender that to God and follow Him? Share with each other at your tables and pray for one another. Guys, this is all going to come down to really, what is God saying? Let's not try to fix each other. Let's not try to come up with another formula. let's really just take a step back and just identify it. And then really my challenge to you this week is to be praying in that area of your life and really seek God out in it and find out, you know, is this really what you want me to do? Because a lot of times, guys, what I think happens is that in the areas of our lives that we are most strong in, that we find ourselves praying least in those areas. And it may be good tonight, guys, to really think about in the areas that we're talking about tonight, what are the places that you're least likely to pray for? And maybe that'll help you guys get on the right path to see where God needs to be brought back in and to really seek out what He's teaching you. So, as always, leave the religious junk out in the parking lot. Take time to get real with one another. 1, 2, 3, go. Tonight, just to close with, as I think about what we can take away from here tonight, I hope that what we'll really see is that, you know, God has got a plan for all of us. I don't know what it is, but He's got us all on a journey. But I think this week, if we really want to see what that looks like, is maybe take a step back in some of these areas that we're working really hard in and ask God, you know, what are you teaching me? And as you guys do that and you guys start to pray, start praying prayers that, you know, reflect more of what God's will is in it. I know for me, a lot of times when I'm praying, I'm asking more for His help with things or asking Him to figure out a situation that's not working instead of just seeking His will in it. So this week, as you guys pray, think about that. Think about how you're praying to God and really seek Him out in it. And then, you know, as you guys have connected here at the tables tonight, reach out to each other this week. Talk to each other about some of these areas that you're struggling in, and see what God's teaching you, because we all can learn from each other. So, yeah, Dave, you want to close us out tonight?